Hello and welcome to She TV, the place to become powerfully feminine from the inside out. I'm Candice Oneida, and today we are talking about the power of the true feminine. If you haven't already, subscribe over here. I publish at least once a week. Okay, so what I'm talking to you about today is the power of the true feminine. Or the power of the feminine, the real feminine, which is really what you're here for, okay? So last week I did a whole conversation about the pitfalls of the false feminine, and one of the main things I passed in that conversation was that essentially the false feminine is in a world of the victim. They feel like a victim. And I just want to cover a few or go over a few things again. In this model I've created around the true and the false feminine, I want to make sure that you take this model through the lens of compassion, either self-compassion or compassion for others, as you see this in others. It's a model to help give you clarity, to help you understand where you are and where you need to move toward. It's not something to use to debase or dehumanize another human being. Models are not for that. Think of the model as more neutral, and then you get to go, oh, wow, aha, I've fallen into my false feminine. I'm experiencing or I'm believing that I'm a victim to a situation or a circumstance right now, okay? So let's make sure that we clear on that. The other thing about my model, my trainings with women is I'm also not here to say that the feminine is better than masculine or superior to masculine or anything like that. It's really important to understand that the masculine and the feminine are inner forces that are inside of us, and they just have different motions. They have different drivings inside of us. And so we are not here to make one better than the other. The women that tend to be attracted to me and my work are women that tend to have become masculine dominant, which is my story. You've heard a bit about my story. And that are actually feel that they actually really have a deep core inner feminine soul, and that's what they want to learn about. That's what they want to relearn and to emerge into in themselves. So if the false feminine is the realm of the victim, then the true feminine is the realm of the victorious. So it's a pathway from victim to victory, from victim to victory. And so I really want you to understand that, and when I speak of victory, there is an aspect of conquering when we're talking about work of consciousness. And so we're talking about victory over something that was essentially an illusion. So anything in the false levels, whether it's false feminine or false masculine, we're talking about habits, beliefs, illusions, and desires even that have been conditioned and imposed upon us. They aren't even real, and they're definitely not the real authentic version of you. So if you're a woman, this is for you. If you have a deep inner core that is a feminine soul and you're wanting to relearn and to emerge into your feminine power and energy. So the true feminine is then that of victory. Now, another thing I want to make a distinction about here is the movement from the false feminine to the true feminine is a motion of evolution. It's not a motion of perfection. So the true feminine is not about being a more perfect version of the false feminine, or that suddenly you're going to be a perfect human being and you'll never make a mistake, or you'll never trip over yourself, or you'll never err. To err is human. It's more about the way that the true feminine relates to that type of thing, the more about the way that she responds to her own errings and to her community and to her family and friends around her. That is the true queen, the queen that can be composed and graceful and grace-filled when things have gone wrong. It's actually our test of character, really, isn't it? We are most tested when things are difficult, not when they're easy. So it's usually the women who are attracted to work with me are sort of unconsciously fallen into the masculine and all the false levels of the masculine and the false feminine. Okay, so we're here to talk about the power of the true feminine, okay? Because when I had this epiphany that there is a difference between the false feminine the princess and the maid, there was a big aha I had where it's like, oh, because of my 20 odd years of astrology training, there is a false or a lower mode of the feminine, and there is a true and a higher mode. And again, I don't want you to see higher as above or better than or superior to. It's more that when you're in the true feminine, the way you see the world, the way you see a situation, the way you see circumstances is very, very different than through the lens of the false feminine. So what I really want to make sure that I pass here to you today is that when you emerge, and I talk about it as an emergence, like how a flower when planted into the earth is in the dark and is below the surface and not seen. And then as we emerge into the true feminine, we are then visible, and then we're seen, and the world looks completely different. And of course, the sun is shining on us and we are being nourished by the world around us. That's essentially how the positioning of the true feminine relates to her world. So just a little differentiator here. So if it is that the false feminine constantly looks outside of herself for references, for approval, for acknowledgement, for validation, for justification, and that's what keeps her in the victim, actually. It keeps her not happy, it keeps her depressed, it keeps her underneath things. Then the true feminine is above things. It's like having the ability to see the forest for the trees. Her perspective is much, much broader and wider, and she can see things across time and realize when something within this context isn't going to matter across time. So she doesn't react so much to small situations, but she does have the ability to see the big and the broad picture. So the distinguishing factor there is that the queen and the priestess learned to turn toward themselves, not to be independent, okay, or not separate from, but she turns toward herself, her inner resources. She turns toward the wisdom and the sensations in her body to help discern and navigate her choices and her path. She has such a strong sense of embodiment. She has such a strong sense of her heart, of her womb, of her pussy, that she takes these parts of herself as wisdom. There's wisdom there. They are telling her things all of the time when something feels good or doesn't feel good, or this feels right or this doesn't feel right. She has a highly honed sense of that. And she has a highly honed sense of community, collaboration, care, and support, that of sisterhood. The true feminine knows sisterhood and community. The false feminine is a lone wolf, and she's separate and she's alone. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to actually read a little bit from the content of my paid program called the Powerfully Feminine Intensive. I'm going to read to you the descriptor of the queen and the priestess, just to give you a little bit more illumination, understanding and depth as to what you're moving toward in terms of your true feminine power. So I'm assuming if you've got this far that you're on board with the idea of becoming victorious and emerging into your true self, your true authentic feminine self. So the queen, she is very incarnated. She's of this world. She's compassionate, caring, and she's queen of her domain, and she loves and adores her people. She has a large vision of her life and takes care of who assists her as well as who she is in service of. She's in a position to attract her king. She's a feminine leader. She takes her cues from inside herself and her trusted circles. She's clear on what she wants and calm and fluid in her requests. She is the earth. She's grounded and calm. She creates, she grows and nurtures things. She lives life to its fullest with no excuses or apology. She's full of joy, hope, support, and encouragement. She's held by life. She trusts it, has faith in its force to flow through her so that she can run her family, her businesses, and the world around her with grace, ease, and flow. The queen has a strong sense of herself. She is what I called self-full. She rests in her centers and her relationship to life, its gifts, and its forces. Her principles are that of groundedness, growth, and support, like the earth is for the roots of a mighty tree. Okay, so in order that you can understand the subtle distinction between the Queen and the Priestess, I am going to read to you about your inner Priestess. The Priestess is a bridge between the physical and non-physical realms. She's deeply connected to spirit and source. She's a vehicle for the divine. She's a force of the feminine. She is wild, she is free, she is alive. She's connected to the part of you that is a goddess spiritually, but she's here, now, and fully incarnated. She comes out when you're in service to your life purpose, to those that you serve under your purpose, under this. She reveals herself in the bedroom, when you've earned her respect and her trust. She is a sexual priestess and commands forces of life and energy in and around her. She loves to surrender and knows its creative power. She knows surrender. She knows its power. She knows that she who surrenders first wins. She is the water, both fluid and wild, deep, dangerous, nourishing, and regenerative. She's a force to be both matched and reckoned with. She is love. She operates from love and shines it through everything that she does. Her principles are that of opening, mystery, and enlightenment. True feminine power, as I always say, comes from inside out. The true feminine expresses herself in every way from inside out, whether it's the way she moves her body, the way she uses her voice, the way she uses her hands, her touch, her care. See, the true feminine operates from rich inner abundance. Abundance could mean financial abundance. It could be abundance of love. It could be abundance of whatever your deepest desires are, which is why the art of desire is one of the 5 core feminine arts that is mastered by the true feminine. You could say the true feminine gains victory over the feminine arts, and that's why I teach the 5 core feminine arts in the Powerfully Feminine Intensive, because those 5 core feminine arts are what we need to own, to master, to have victory over as women in order to step into the realm of the true feminine. And I just want to repeat again, you literally see the world differently when you're operating from the Queen. Things don't look like a struggle. Things don't look like there's lack. There's no lack. There's no lack of self-worth. There's no lack of finances. There's no lack of love. There's no lack of touch. There's no lack of you there. There's a fullness of you. And when you are full in yourself, again, what I call self-full, when we are self-full, then there is a fullness that is also attracted toward us. And when we're self-full, we are full to overflowing. I always say, as the true feminine, we learn to plug in to our power source. That can be the heart, the womb, the pussy, the sexual energy, life force. We plug in, it turns us on. Okay, we get turned on brightly and we get filled up, full to overflowing. And then when we are overflowing with life force, then we get to give and serve, because then we have an unlimited font of life force and love and energy and gifts to give to people. And we're not doing it as a depletion of ourselves or a depletion of our energies. The Queen and the Priestess know exactly when to stop doing things that are depleting her abundance account, depleting her energy account. She knows, oh, I'm overdoing it right now. I need to out-breath. I need to take breaks. I need to create space. Otherwise, I'm going to contract myself back into the false feminine. The last thing I want to pass to you today is the essential movement, if I could say the simplest and most essential movement that we learn to do from the false feminine to the true feminine, is the movement from fear to love. So everything else that we learn about the true feminine is a learning for being in love all of the time. You know, in my signature talk, I'll say, remember that time when you fell in love with someone and something kind of just turned on inside you and ignited, and you looked 10 years younger and nothing could go wrong. Everything seemed to work, right? And that's because in the dynamic, when love gets ignited inside of us, we get plugged in to the feminine. It's actually the feminine that both of you are getting plugged into. You're getting plugged into the sexual energy, you're getting plugged into life force, and you're getting plugged into love. And this is the realm of the true feminine. And so what I'm trying to pass here is that when you learn to operate there, be your true feminine, your shining, radiant, queenly emergence, you can feel that all of the time. Whether you do or don't have a partner, you feel full in your life, in your choices, you have clarity of navigation, you have a sisterhood and a team of people around you that you trust, that you engage in conversation with, that you support, that support you. This is a realm of fullness, of love, of support, of care. And see, whether you do or don't have a partner at the moment, for example, can you see that when you are already operating like that you are going to attract a very different type of person into your life? It's a very different experience. And if you do have a partner and you emerge in your queen, well, it's a huge gift because you actually give him the opportunity to stand up and to step into his king. So this essential movement that we make from the false to the true is that from fear, a world of fear and the victim, to a world of love and victory. I see them as the same thing. All right, my dears, enough there today. And so I'm going to sign off now. If you liked the video today, give me a thumbs up. And I'd love you to share below any of the questions or problems you're having with the difference between the true and the false feminine. And remember, when you have the courage to go out there and shine, you give others permission to do the same. So let's go out there and shine this week. Bye-bye for now.